We're here, we're at Ceraweek. I have gathered the team from Energy Tech Nexus, Juliana Garazar, Jason Ethier. Did I say it right?
Jason Ethier.
And then also Nada Ahmed. So thank you guys for doing this.
First off,
you are so welcome. We got one microphone. We're going to rotate it. We're going to rotate it around. But just to kick it off, Jason, I'll start with you. You're one of the main founders of Energy Tech Nexus. For those that might not be familiar with what you guys are doing, the role you play in not just technology but in energy, can you just walk us through what the contribution is of Energy Tech Nexus for the community, for founders, and what you're doing with corporations, investors, and the whole gamut?
Good. So just a little correction. So we're all co-founders here, founding partners at the Energy Tech Nexus. We do have a team, I think, of like 9 now, which is always funky to say. But importantly, we're a community of 103 members today who are all working on energy and energy tech and climate. We like to talk a lot about the energy trilemma here, where you need to balance low-cost energy, sustainable energy, and resilient energy. And that is the balance we always find yourselves in. And to help that, we're going to be safe with technology. And so we bring in companies, entrepreneurs, innovators from around the world, and we all know they need to be the energy capital of the world. That's Houston. That is the Nexus. That is what we're building. And by creating those kind of accidental connections, we help people find opportunities, build the right products, and help us provide that abundant energy we need just as a society.
Nice. So what's interesting, I love all that because it's a wide range of benefits, not just to the city, but to these entrepreneurs, and really just what you guys are working on and what's coming out of the Energy Tech Nexus is such a contribution to technology, to efficiency. I mean, the list goes on and on. You three each have different roles that you play within from a leadership standpoint. Can we walk through those?
Yeah. Well, I think any founding team does a little bit of everything. So in terms of principal activities, our goal is to bring people together. And so a lot of times that means a lot of events. And so Juliana and I hosted an event called the Low Carbon Investment Summit last week. Tomorrow, Nada's hosting a huge event called Energy Tech Market, which is bringing international members into Houston and showcasing them amongst the crowd here. And so, again, each of us are taking a lot of those responsibilities. I spend most of my time with entrepreneurs, love working with founders, and kind of walking them through the growth process. I'm going to hand it off to Juliana so she can talk about what she focuses on.
Yeah, so Jason for sure is the community entrepreneur connector. Right now, some of our startups are small, but then we have scale-ups. At Ceraweek here, we have 9 Canadian scale-ups that are coming through our Scale-Up Hub program to Houston, and we are doing a pitch event today and tomorrow with the Energy Tech Market. I'm the investor side of the trifecta here. We have a trilemma to solve, and we have a trifecta with the three of us. I'm an investor, got an Investor of the Year award this year with a Houston Innovation Map, and what I try to do is connect investors with our members. We just launched our investor program literally last week at our Low Carbon Investment Summit. We are very excited about that. We have been investing ourselves. We're doing syndication calls, syndication meetings with other investors that have already invested in some of our companies, and a lot of matchmaking, and the matchmaking we're doing is actually powered by AI. And I'm not going to steal Jason's thunder about our Sapphire product, but we are very, very excited about that. He's going to talk about it later. Nice. And now I'm going to pass it to Nada, who is the corporate super connector.
Thank you. It's really an honor to work with Jason and Juliana, who have been ecosystem builders for many, many years. And now I call it, it's the next iteration post-COVID in this new environment. How do you actually help entrepreneurs and make Houston the center of innovation and build that entrepreneurial ecosystem that we really haven't had? And in the last 5 years, we've seen huge progress in Houston with the ION, with Greentown Labs. And now it's the next iteration of, okay, how do we take it further? And how do we help startups with shortcutting the things that take a really long period of time? So there was an example of one of our members, she was trying to explain to somebody what Nexus does, and she's like, I've been part of this community for less than 6 months, and I've been able to come to Ceraweek for free. I'm presenting, I've been connected to an investor, I have a pilot that's lined up, and it's because of the connections that you make in the community. And I think what makes us different is that we're very approachable, down to earth. We know each one of our members.
Oh my gosh, I know each one of them. Yes.
Yeah. And Juliana is really like our partnership queen too. She has great relationships with all our corporates who are essential to our startups because we're talking very often hard tech. We do have companies that are working on digital solutions and AI, but these corporates are looking for pilots. And so what we're doing in September, for example, is this pilotathon. And this is something no one is doing, but everyone's talking about. Like, if you talk to any startup, they'll tell you, we want to do pilots. Like, more than money, we want to be able to do pilots. And so we're going to make that easier by bringing Chevron, Oxy, Aramco to the table, Shell to the table, and say, these are the pilots that we're looking for. This fits our strategy, and you showcase them to us. So a lot of what I do is, like, right now focused on building those partner relationships, but then also making programs not only for our corporate partners, but specifically for our startups that allows them to connect with investors. In particular, another one of our value is an equitable energy transition. And so we do a Determined to Lead lunch once a month, really showcasing and featuring female leaders, whether they're founders or whether they're in industry, but making sure they have a voice and they have a platform in which women can connect with each other and play an important role.
Very nice. That gives me a really good picture of what you guys are doing. So when it comes to investors who want to be in the energy tech space, what are some of the issues that they have that by connecting with you guys, they might be able to have a new opportunity, a new ability to connect with these entrepreneurs, these corporations that are doing great things in the space?
Yeah, so in general, investors are investing in hard tech. When you invest in energy tech solutions or climate tech solutions in general, it has a infrastructure component. It's not only software. So if you think about the funding cycle of non-software deals or companies, it's not very adapted to the traditional VC model. The traditional VC model, there's only one value of death. In general, the exits happen pretty early, after 3, 4, 5 years. When you bring hardware to the mix, suddenly the cost of the whole thing is much more expensive. It's longer time periods, so it's what we call a different capital stack, where we not only need VC, but we need debt, we need loans, we need project finance. Even to get started, we might need some grants. And in general, these investors don't speak to one another. Traditional VCs don't know many corporate VCs, or they don't know family offices or private equity to exit those investments and hand it over to first-of-a-kind plans with them. So it is complicated, and I think to finance the energy transition, you need to innovate a lot in finance. And that's what we're bringing. We're bringing this table where we train early-stage investors on how to invest in energy tech, whether angels or VCs that have never done energy tech. We put them in touch with corporates. We make sure that corporates and other investors that invest later on talk to one another. So we have this investor program now that has syndication meetings. So many of our companies may have a deal lead, but they don't have the whole round figured out. So we're going to make sure that investors talk to one another. And then we put them together with debt, with people like Kelly Belcher from JP Morgan, who was our keynote speaker at the Low Carbon Investment Summit. They want to talk to deals to see how we can do the whole stack, not only with equity, debt, grants, whatever's out there, and try to figure out how to all work together. And we do it not only in terms of investments, but also in terms of pilots. Sometimes the pilots, there's what we call a pilot purgatory. There's a bottleneck. A lot of times our deals won't get money if they don't have a pilot, but sometimes to get a pilot you need money, so it's a chicken and egg problem. And we figured out ways to try to get pilots without having to use equity. So we have a new program called Co-Pilot that we're launching thanks to Envel and Wells Fargo and the Incubation Innovation Network for pilots in underserved parts of the community here in Houston. Is a follow-up to the Houston Equitable Energy Transition Alliance. We're also launching the Pilothon, our second version, where we're going to have pilot partners that are going to offer pilots to our companies. So we really believe that being creative on the way we finance things is going to be key, and we are trying to unlock all of these bottlenecks, all these valleys of death that climate companies, energy tech company have. They have more than one, and that's why we are thinking about all the financing chain and all the value chains. We're not only an incubator. Our companies are post-Series D some cases. We're doing project finance with them. We're doing debt. So that's why we call ourselves a hub.
Okay, and then a quick question just for the non-technical audience. When you mention the word pilot in the world of investments and entrepreneurship and the Energy Tech Nexus, what does that mean?
Yeah, so in general, when you have a company that has hardware or infrastructure, it's not only about demonstrating the technology in a lab. At some point, you need to demonstrate it in a real case scenario. So you either need to have a small plan or making sure it gets out of the lab. And for that, in general, you need money to make it happen. Not only you need a location or plug it into a certain plant. So corporate partners are essential to make that happen. And that's where we come in and make sure that, the road to do these demonstrations so that our companies can demonstrate that this specific innovation not only works at the lab, but it works in a real small-scale scenario. Is kind of key for them to go and deliver on the next milestone and get funding for the next milestone that would be like a small factory or what we call a first-of-a-kind plant, which is, again, another valley of death. So financing energy tech is complicated, but luckily we have the expertise and we have the partners to make it happen.
Nice. All right, and I have one more question for you on this, and then we're going to move to Jason. Okay, so the term hardware, typically people who aren't in this space, we automatically go to computers and we think of, servers and whatnot. Yes. In your world, the word hardware means something very different. For our audience, could you share what truly does hardware mean in the space that you guys are?
It's hard tech. It's basically anything that has a component that you can make or break. So it could be IoT, it could be anything that has to do with infrastructure, sensors, it could be pipes, it could be different materials. A lot of our companies do materials that are very innovative or can absorb carbon. So it's basically anything that is physical, and that's why it's very difficult to finance those, because sometimes we're talking about pipelines, we're talking about a big plant. So that kind of infrastructure is not in general financed by venture capital. Venture capital, they might do a little bit of hardware when we're talking about sensors of IoT, but then when we talk about plants, we're talking about infrastructure. It's a different kind of financing.
Nice. Okay. So Jason, when it comes to entrepreneurs that are in the space, you're a startup, you are looking for a place to land that can help not just with hardware and manufacturing and the capability of knowing who to partner with and how to get things done, but also financially having investors. From Energy Tech Nexus's standpoint, what are the issues that are top of mind for entrepreneurs, and what are some of the solutions, the strategies that you guys really dive into with them to help them navigate the challenges?
Yeah, so I think that just with the current political and energy environment we have today, the number one concern and question is capital availability. So as much as investors need to understand how to deploy capital, people don't want to spend money when they don't know what the future is going to hold. And so we've seen this. There's an explosion of energy and climate investment firms that started in the 21s, 22s, and we haven't seen a lot of those funds renew. They haven't been able to get new LPs. They've had challenges, and so the kind of huge amounts of capital we had 3 years ago is now contracted. And so a lot of the entrepreneurs have to concern themselves with, how do I find that next investor either at the Series A level, or does the wisdom from the last generation still hold true? And so I think a lot of those companies are trying to figure out, yes, I got to go fund my pilot, but how do I do it super efficiently, and how do I do it knowing that the macro environment is still the same? Like as a macro environment, we're looking at this and we're going, oh my gosh, AI is coming online. We need so much power, right? We already needed a ton more power coming into our system before the hyperscaler and data center demand was really understood, and so the need for innovation is still there, and so the entrepreneurs have to balance, how do I get the cash in the door now for the fact that I'm going to deploy this hard tech that is going to have demand in 5 to 7 years. And so as much as there might be uncertainty with like energy coming out of our various international partners with domestic policy, they have to stay the course and believe they're going to get to the end, but find a different path that's maybe lower capital, less capital intensive in the beginning. So I think that's a first challenge. One of the things that we can do is actually we help advise the startups on thinking about their financing strategy. Do you go for a grant? Which grant do you go to? And depending on the level of service, we will actually sit down and develop an investor target list for them, and then we do have a partner who we work with who can actually do a full financing as an investment bank, and so we kind of provide that service depending on the level of support. If you're raising $250,000, we don't go for the investment bank. We show you how to do it yourself, and most likely point you towards a grant program. But even with the uncertainty in grants today, there was a lot of concern on capital being held or under review, and luckily we've been able to bring on a resource in partnership with Lacey, where we can help identify companies that are good candidates for debt financing, and generally that's for $100,000 to $200,000 of working capital, usually to support a grant, or maybe there's some uncertainty on payment schedule, but where you're expected to perform, and that can be a very critical working line of capital when a business needs it most and when capital is most expensive, and because it's debt, it's a lot cheaper than going out and raising equity, and we know equity is going to be tight. Equity gets very tight when the stock market drops 10%, because most angels pull their capital out of the stock market and they just don't feel like doing it when the interest is down. So these kind of instruments that we're able to provide are incredibly valuable.
Nice.
Tell them what Lacey is.
Oh, and to clarify, Lacey is the LA Clean Tech Institute. They're a state-funded industry out of LA, really helping to, really on the forefront of helping to electrify mobility and supporting companies on the West Coast. And we love working with them to support companies kind of across the spectrum. We might be a little more broad in terms of working with more traditional energy companies, but we're here with the same mission of creating accessibility for energy.
Nice. So in the world of working with, you have entrepreneurs, you have the investors, and then comes the corporations. There's some deep pockets that have really good interest in supporting new technology and really help Mother Earth in many ways. So Nada, my question for you is, being that you're spearheading the corporate relationships and the reach that you guys have, what are some of the things that you notice that corporations are challenged with in identifying these great entrepreneurs, and then also how they might leverage them internally? Like what have you been noticing? What do you anticipate for 2025 as your mission to take Energy Tech Nexus and make all of these things more available to corporations that are trying to do big things?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So corporations have been in the Houston space, at least, for many, many years, looking to connect with good entrepreneurs, good founders, good companies, because they understand they're not going to create all these technologies in-house, and they have to look outside not only for inspiration, but also for seeing what companies can they buy, what companies are not only potential partners, but maybe that's an exit strategy for these startups. So all these big corporates have M&A groups and they have scouts. They're always on the lookout, but it's really hard. A lot of them always end up going to Silicon Valley to find these companies, when actually a lot of that innovation happens in Houston, and it's possible that it can happen here because all the talent is here, right? We have Houston is the city which has the most number of chemical engineers per capita per any other city, and I didn't know that until recently. So we have countless numbers of engineers with all this like technical expertise, and corporates are here, like the big energy companies are here. We have a big supply chain. So there's a lot of innovation that does happen here, but we don't really we don't talk about it in the same way as like the startup and the venture world, but it's really highlighting that. And I think the startups are really, the corporations understand that now, so they are actively involved with all kinds of incubators, not in the West Coast, but then they look at us and they're like, we get people knocking at our door of startups nonstop, and it's really hard for us to go through all those applications. And then someone like us can come in and really, with the tool that we're developing, use AI, go to all these pitch events and be able to identify startups that they're not going to find in the spaces that they're at, that we're able to give them access to at an early stage. So that's one of the things that we've seen in the market that, you know, startups, the corporations really value, that we can provide help with. Also, a lot of the corporations have already started on this train towards decarbonization and energy transition. And I know there's a little bit of uncertainty with the new government. There have been some changes that are being made. But what we are hearing, you know, because you asked what can we predict, what we're hearing from corporates is like, we've already invested in this. We have infrastructure in place. We have processes in place. We've already put in the money that we're going to then further build on over the next couple of years. So I don't see any of that innovation within energy transition to disappear. And furthermore, with this new administration, we're going to have even more focus on efficiency. There's some focus areas that they've identified: geothermal, hydrogen, hydro, nuclear. Areas that 5 years ago no one was talking about, but companies are talking about it more now, and they want to see how they can play a role.
Nice. All right, and I know you guys are expanding, so I don't know who wants to take this first one, but Energy Tech Nexus, I mean, you guys are busting out of the seams, and you have a new location coming up.
You want to talk about Jason, how we moved in Houston? I can do international.
Okay. Yeah. So we are bursting at the seams, physically and emotionally, I guess. But we were in downtown Houston and found that we were really outgrowing the space there. Mostly because we had too many people coming in the building, and parking became a real challenge. But we found a great partnership with Metro National. They are out there by Memorial City. And we are co-working with them today in their co-working space. But more importantly, we're activating the community in that area. And when you look at like our membership and ask them, where do you live? The center is actually right there at Memorial City. And so we're happy to pick up, and we are moving out of downtown and right into 820 Gessner this week, actually, getting the moving truck together. But that gives us an opportunity to serve entrepreneurs and people who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs in and around the energy corridor, which is right next door. And there's just a whole group of that talent, those engineers that live here in Houston, who all want to apply their skills, especially those who are later in their careers, to bringing technology to market, to really tackling opportunity. And we're giving them that pathway to try on their entrepreneur outfit. Yeah. And
tell them, for people who have never been, who've never walked the halls of Energy Tech Nexus, what would they see? What for an entrepreneur that might be watching this, going, "Hey, maybe this is a place that I need to talk to these folks." What will they see? What kind of resources do they have access to? And what ultimately is the deliverable for people that decide to be part of Energy Tech Nexus?
Yeah, it's funny. So what you're going to see is people. So I think that's really what we're about. Yes, we have space. Yes, we're in a physical location. But the location is in service of creating those relationships and those connections. And I've been watching kind of this space around as we've been doing interview. And I think there's like 24 members in this room here at Ceraweek. There's like 4 of them right there. I saw one of our guys from Hexaspec walk by. You get to see that every week, because we host an event, we bring people together, and even our
don't need to have a space.
And part of that's because we're in this post-pandemic environment where people aren't locked in an office; they're locked up at home, and they need to get away from the kids for a little bit, and they need to network, and they need to make connections, and they do that in person. And so we've become this like metaphorical water cooler for the community, or a nexus for people to come together and engage. And so that's what you're going to see when you're at our space, is people in conversation that is personally invigorating, and importantly fun. I think when you're kind of heads down and working as an entrepreneur, it's easy to get kind of caught up in the work, but it's a long journey, and having kind of peers and colleagues who support you, who are welcoming, is so much more valuable than our membership fees charged. So we try to be really accessible because we want to have people in the community. So that's what you'll experience.
Nice.
There are more resources. We have like $4 million of discounts on our website, which is a lot. So, but we'll help people navigate it. But really, we focus on fundraising, resources that lower kind of the cost of starting a business, and we will direct them to even people who can help them with underwriting.
Wow, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's my world. And
so we're talking about expansion in Houston, and you know, some of our members have their own spaces, but they still come to us for the community to do events with us. We don't require them to have a space and co-locate with us, but we are the nexus of connectivity. So what we do is we do a lot of events for our members that are on a weekly basis, so there's always an opportunity for them to connect and to do a lot of the things and the programs that we need to do with them. And that is in Houston. Of course, we're a global community. Some of our members are not in Houston. As I mentioned, we have 9 Canadian scale-ups that are here at Ceraweek. We have around 10 companies that come from Latin America. A few others are coming from Europe, and we're going to Europe again with them, like last year to the Energy Tech Summit in Bilbao. We're bringing 15 companies again to present there and to meet with Spanish counterparts. So with those connections, we decided to create the spaces also with some of our partners in Chile. We have 2 locations there, and in Spain, where we also have partners, and that is one of the reasons why we're going again to the Energy Tech Summit. And those partnerships are essential, not because only we have companies from Chile or Spain, Europe that want to come to Houston to engage with the community. It's a lot also about our members getting a lot out of those connections by doing pilots in those areas. So we have a partnership with INAP already in Chile, the oil and gas company there, to do several pilots there with them. We're also engaging with some other corporate partners in Spain that we're going to meet in April with our trip to Bilbao. So that global outreach is essential, and I really believe that our members are benefiting a lot from it.
So I think just building on what Jason and Juliana was saying, I think sometimes we don't understand the value of like just randomly people running into each other, but all of them are entrepreneurs. So we have had people, they come to our Working Wednesday lunches and they're like, what accounting software do you use? You know, because we all struggle with that. And then you've been like trying to find out and trying to Google this, and you talk to someone and you're like, actually, I have this really good accountant that I use, and that, you know, she's amazing. And so these kind of shortcuts that happen when you have these serendipitous encounters, sometimes we undervalue that. And it was Jason who explained to me, like in Silicon Valley, like when you have all that talent in one place, when someone becomes a founder and is successful, they've raised a Series B, a Series C, then they can help someone who's at seed level because they have all this experience behind them. But how do you build those, create arenas where those mentorships can happen organically?